edition of the Final Whistle on Lair Media. And we have the usual email for your comments and suggestions, info@lairmedia.tv. And we have a text line as well into the show, 083 300 2695. Some people say I speak too quickly. Now, there you go. I slowed that down very much. Good evening, Derwynne Honan. Good evening.
Pat, how are you?
Yeah, very well. Good evening, Joe Waters.
Good evening, Pat.
Good evening, Chris. And you're looking better today now.
Good evening, Pat, Barry, and friends.
Well, since we were here last Monday night, we were just remarking before we came on air that, well, I think personally that Patrick Vieira seemed to have found his feet as a manager with Crystal Palace. I mean, last Monday night they drew with Man City 0-0, which is no mean feat when you consider the squad that they have, to the continuous bending of the rules by Man City with all these money and finances and shenanigans and all that we've spoken about on many shows. Anyway, they did a good result. Man U were put out of the cup since we were here last by Atletico Madrid in Old Trafford. And so that was, it was a bit of a surprise because, I mean, they had gone to Atletico and it was a credible performance and they had come to Old Trafford with everything to win, really, if they were up to the mark. But really, we all know what happened there. Chelsea, of course, beat Lille. And Spurs beat Brighton. They're down to the last four in the FA Cup. And Liverpool, of course, beat Arsenal. They beat Arsenal easier than what I get. And they only won 2-0, but they beat them well. You know, so the gap between the top three or top two, top three is pretty wide enough, you know. Leeds beat Wolves, and I think Chelsea, Arsenal beat Aston Villa, and all of that. In the Cup yesterday, Man City were, you know, I think you could see the semi-finals of the FA Cup, the cream. Chris, did you see any of the soccer over the weekend?
I saw the second half of, because I was working the weekend, so I saw the second half of Nottingham Forest and Liverpool, and I thought it was the best 45 minutes I'd seen in a long, long time. Just basically Nottingham Forest, who should be back in the Premiership. Hopefully they may be next year or two. They went hammer and tongs, and I thought they could have scored 2 to 3 goals. They were absolutely brilliant, and I've seen a couple of their previous cup matches, and they were very, very good. And you know, there was a stat that they called out yesterday at the match that in a very competitive championship race, that Notts Forest had the worst start since 1913 to any league. They have taken more points since their worst start. And only one club has taken more points than them this season, and that's Fulham, who are running away with the league. So, you know, that just shows you how good that they are playing. And there's some cracking players that they have there. And let's just hope, you know, I think they would be a breath of fresh air, because I think if Forest, I think the lads, I mean, Joe would know when it comes to being in professional football like this, it's easier to go down, but very, very hard to get back up. And they've been down a good bit now, and I think once they get up, I think they'll throw the kitchen sink at it, and they will get such an increase in revenue. But I think they know they will spend it wisely. And I think they will be a massive addition, and it would maybe replace 1 or 2 teams that have shown to have zero ambition in the Premiership.
Joe, did you see any of the soccer over the weekend?
Yeah, I did. I saw a bit of it. You know, we were just talking there a minute ago, as you were doing the introduction, just the United Atletico Madrid game.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Atletico deserved to win the game, but one of the things in the game was that the last 30 minutes of the game, the ball was in play for 6 minutes and 19 seconds.
Go away.
Yeah. That's how they milked the clock, by going on the ground and rolling about. The referee not adding time because it's his discretion. And and it's just, I mean, they're making a mockery of the game, and you know, they're spending more time on the ground than they are playing the actual game itself. So that to me was disgrace. I saw the Leeds and the Wolves game, where Leeds were 2-0 down, came back and won 3-2. I thought Leeds showed great spirit in that game. Now the sending off, I think, affected the game. But certainly Leeds, you know, they seem to believe in Jesse March and what he's trying to do. So I saw that one. I saw the West Ham game, West Ham and Tottenham. That was kind of an unfortunate game for Kurt Zouma. He was involved in all 3 goals against. One of them was an own goal, one was a deflection, and then the third one, 2 centre-backs went for the same ball and missed it, and some went in 1-on-1. I didn't see the Forest game, but the Forest certainly are a very, very nice looking team. And I think it's all down to their manager. I think his name is Cooper. He was at
Steve Cooper.
Steve Cooper, yeah. He was at Swansea, and he did a great job at Swansea. And Swansea canned him, I think, at the end of the year. And I have no idea why, but I mean, his team, he has that team flying, that Forest team to beat Leicester in the cup. And that, like Chris says, you know, they're doing an unbelievable job in the league. I mean, it's reminiscent of Clough really taking over at Forest when they were nearly in the relegation zone, and then coming back the next year and winning promotion. So it'd be exciting to see them up there. Sorry, but what?
He was at Liverpool Youth Academy as well.
That's right, yeah.
Oh yeah, and Derwynne, we don't want to be knocking Man United or any team, but they're a world brand team, and for that they have certain responsibilities to the club and to the paying public. Well, the few that are left, because there nearly are corporate sales going into that place now. You know,
there was an interesting thing on TalkSport this morning about the guy who used to have Crystal Palace was on it.
Jordan.
Simon
Jordan.
Simon Jordan. Yeah.
And he actually said something really interesting. They were talking about a boxing match last night, or a UFC or whatever that thing's called, in Dubai, and that Rashford was out in Dubai watching it and supporting his mate who was fighting. And he said, could you imagine Ferguson allowing them to have a week off, international week, then he's obviously not in the England squad, and disappearing away on holidays and different things when they're playing as bad as they are.
Yeah.
And then it turned out that somebody phoned in on TalkSport and said that Ranzik, whoever his name is, he's out in Barbados watching England play cricket.
Go here.
Yeah.
This is
he's in Barbados watching the cricket, and you'd think they were at the top of the league, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Jesus.
But you wouldn't do that when you're top of the league. In all honesty, you wouldn't do that when you're top of the league. You would remain focused. You'd be going in for training. Well, first of all, if you're the top of the league, your players will play international duty. And for those that were not playing internationally, whatever few that be left, you'd be training because you'd be focused, because you're going to say, you know, if I put the extra little bit in now, over the next 3 or 4 days, it might give me that 1 or 2% extra when it comes to all the matches that we have to play in April. That's what it is.
Well, when the phones suddenly then went bananas on TalkSport, and they were saying that most of the players who aren't on international duty aren't even training at United this week. They've got a week off.
They've all been given a week off because probably Wreck-It Ralph has probably gone back to Germany for a week.
No, he's in Barbados watching the cricket.
He's gone to cricket. Oh, him, the manager.
Yeah.
What's he got? What's a German going to do watching cricket in Barbados?
Apparently, he's well into his cricket.
Nice and sunny.
Here. I thought you meant that one of the players. No, the manager.
Yeah.
Well, now
I hear.
I
Come
say
on.
one thing,
come on.
Darwin, that I didn't know about the manager, and I certainly, if I was the manager of a top class club like United, number one, there'd be no player on holidays till the season finishes. None, not one of them, not one of them. There'd be no player missing from the ground except they were genuinely injured, and certainly the manager would not. But the ethos of the club, but I know what we speak about it. When Ferguson was there, he did a lot of things right. He did a few things not correct. But as you said, discipline was the thing, just black and white with him. I'll tell you, I could not see under Ferguson any player going away to Dubai like that.
There's a story about Ferguson. After United won the treble, after they won the European Cup, Steve McLaren was the first team coach. And Steve McLaren says, well, after the game, he said, well, that's it. We're ready. We're going on holidays and we'll be back in a couple of weeks or a few weeks and we'll get to all this. And they get out and Ferguson said, okay, all the coaching staff, we have a meeting at Carrington on Monday morning. Bacon butties and tea, and we're planning for next year. And that was it. After they just won the treble, there was no letdown. We're going to get back to Manchester on Sunday, and we're going to be in on Monday morning, and we're planning for next year. And that was it. I saw another one the other day when I think with City, they hadn't played very well in a midweek game. And Guardiola said, well, I don't care that we won. He said, we didn't play very well, so we'll be in training tomorrow to put this right. And that's why these teams are at the top.
Right.
And they're consistently at the top.
There'd be no one going over to see a UFC fight. No. With all respect to Dubai and the UFC.
Did you ever hear this, Pat? Did you ever hear the story about Brian Cody and Henry Shefflin?
Yeah.
Right. I'll explain this so the lads might know, right? Brian Cody is, well, still is, believe it or not, the Kilkenny hurling manager after winning so many All-Irelands. And Henry Shefflin was probably the best hurler in the country, and there's like 10 All-Irelands. But he had won about 6 or 7 All-Irelands at this stage. And he was going, this is an amateur game, Derwynne. This is the level that we're at here when it comes to professionalism in an amateur sport. Right? Professionalism in an amateur sport. So Henry Shefflin is due to go to his best mate's wedding on a Saturday night. And he decides to ring his manager, Brian Cody, and he says, look, boss, I'm going to my mate's wedding. He says, that's fine. He says, this is pre-season training, like months out before the championship, right?
Yeah.
And he says, yeah, okay, fair enough. Training's at 10 o'clock on Sunday. Yeah, okay, fair enough. But, I'm going to my best mate's wedding. He says, yeah, fine. Enjoy the wedding, he says, but training's on at 10 o'clock on Sunday. He says, I might have a couple of drinks there. He says, you can have what you want, Henry, but training is still at 10 o'clock on Sunday. The lad left. The guy apparently left the wedding at 6 o'clock, didn't have a drink, and was at training at 10 o'clock on the Sunday morning.
There you go. Well, you see, you have to have that. Now, I was delighted on a more personal note to see one of my favourite teams in the championship, Luton Town, have come from 11th place right up to 3rd. They beat Hull over the weekend. They have another team that could come up. As you said, Fulham are coming up. There's no doubt about that. But Luton are knocking the door. Sheffield United are back in the frame again. Because as you know, they went down. I don't know how. I think they're back in again to come up. And anyway, the soccer. Where are we at? Grimsby drew 0-0 with Boreham Wood. Joe, did you see that?
I did. I saw the result. A bit of a disappointing result for us, really. They'd expected to win that one. I hoped they would have won that one. So, but they're still
for the playoffs. Yeah, they're solid enough. And Luton is set on 3rd place. Now, the final whistle is the program on theirmedia.tv. Our email is info@theirmedia.tv. And now, the crash bang wallop, the rugby union over the weekend. Obviously, everybody knows the results by now and what happened. But Ireland won the Triple Crown, playing poorly again, in my opinion. These are only my opinions. But let's say, as I said, they won that against a very poor Scottish team, very, very poor. One of the poorest I've seen. Italy, who we were talking about a couple of weeks back, won against Wales in Wales. Is there a lower point in Welsh rugby? I can't remember one. But I mean, after 36 matches, they were bound to win some match. They won the 37th at their 37th attempt in the Six Nations. Really and truly, lads, it's nothing to be laudable about it. It's still shocking for a team like that to be in the Six Nations, taking 36 games. 7 years, is it, to win a match?
Yeah.
So 7 years.
Did you see the win? Did you see the winning try?
Yeah, I didn't live, but I saw it after.
Oh, it was. I mean, it was just brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, it was absolutely fantastic. I don't know what the Welsh defense was doing because they didn't seem that committed to it. But the way that kid picked the ball up and just ran at him, I mean, he was like Billy Wiz going down the field on that. And then with that final pass, it was just, I mean, what a way to finish it. And if you're going to win a game, what a brilliant try to win it with.
Yeah.
France must be one of the at least second favourites to win the World Cup now in rugby. I mean, they did do the Grand Slam. They did it without playing well, but I think they're a superb team. I think the team of the Six Nations would probably have 10 of those and only 10 Frenchmen in it, I would say, at a stretch. I don't know. Chris, what do you think? Your sound is off.
Sorry, I was coughing, so I didn't want the sound of the cough coming through.
Oh, yeah.
So basically, with Italy, right? Italy were by far the better team on the day. I think Wales shot themselves in the foot by having what seemed to be a party for Alan William-Jones. 150 down, right? The kids come on at the beginning of the match, and it was just right. We only have to turn up. Big mistake, right? And Italy, who I did see most of the match, were far the better team. They actually could have scored 2, maybe 3 more tries. Wales gave away so many penalties. But nobody but themselves to blame. Scotland are the rugby equivalent of Atletico Madrid. They are just so bad to watch. They killed the ball. You wonder, I mean, there should have been at least 3 yellow cards at one stage of the game for continuous penalties. And when you get a team that acting like that, it's very, very difficult to
You're
play
right, Chris.
against them.
Barnes was shocking.
It's shocking referee. And and what happened is that he's a barrister. And I think he suffers from what they call superiority complex.
He does,
Nobody knows the game better than me. I'm the superior guy. You know what I mean? He was just. I think he is a poor official, and I just think when he's doing a match, it's all about him. And the first lesson in refereeing in sport is that you know when the referee has a good game when they're not talking about him at the end of the match. As for France, again, England only had one plan, and that was kick the ball high, run and chase. That was the Ireland game plan of the 80s, and England have got better players than that. And that was, if I was an English supporter, I'd be thinking, Jesus, lads, what are we going? I know they've got injuries, but they had an awful lot of play. I thought Marcus Smith had a great game. Let's be honest with you. He had a great game, great talent, but he had no one around him. Absolutely no one around him. And I thought the tactic of whenever the French kicked it, to have your tight end or your number one for England as to catch the ball and going, instead of trying to look for an opening, basically going in and just being a sledgehammer was just negative tactics all day. And look, I think Jones is under pressure, but I think it's too close to World Cup to do anything. He's there for the long haul, because if some of the players come back from injury, they'd be a lot different. But if they're going to play like that in the World Cup, they'll get destroyed.
You see, Derwynne, did you see any of the rugger?
Yeah, I watched every game.
Oh, did you?
I did. I watched all the rugby, all the football.
Did France impress you? I don't mean in this game, but as throughout the Six Nations, they looked a notch above everybody else.
They look better than everybody else, but everybody else looks so poor as well.
Well, that's true.
So I think they played some good rugby. Would they beat New Zealand, South Africa? I don't know. But they beat everybody else in that Six Nations because the others were poor.
Well, let's be honest about it. Let's be honest about it, Derwynne, right? Ireland weren't that far off it. A couple of mistakes in decision-making in the last 10 minutes cost Ireland that game. Wales could have, if not should have, beaten France in Cardiff a couple of weeks ago. And if England had a better game plan, they would have gone closer, but they just were so negative, it was beyond belief.
It was interesting.
Well,
because I watched Scrum 5, which is BBC Two Wales.
Yeah.
And it's just specific for Welsh rugby.
Yeah.
And during the Six Nations, it's great because they get all the old players in and they go to town on it, to be honest. They've all got axes to grind. And I think Pivac is a little bit out of his depth.
He is, yeah.
I think he's not. I think it's another one of those. You're following on from Gatland, who was a legend.
And what's his name before that? Henry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit, to me, the Welsh job is a little bit like that poison chalice. It's the United gig, isn't it?
It is. It is. United gig of rugby. And Joe, did you see any of the rugger over the weekend?
I did watch it. I watched a little bit of it. I thought Ireland started off well. And then I thought that, like Chris said, kind of Scotland kind of destroyed the game a little bit, went totally negative on it. And we weren't, we didn't kind of pick up where we started. But, funny that you should talk about things like that. Sir Clive Woodward thinks that France are the tops and that Ireland are the other only home nation team that's moving in a positive direction.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He's said that now a couple of times. He doesn't have a clue what's going on with England and Eddie Jones. What we kind of talked about a couple of weeks ago, the papers are now starting to pick up on Eddie Jones just treating the Six Nations like it's, this doesn't mean anything. We're using it as a practice for the World Cup. Well, that's putting yourself under an awful lot of pressure to be successful at the World Cup if you're ignoring, the bread and butter stuff.
You're right there, Joe. But do you think England, deep down, has the potential of the home nations to win the World Cup?
No.
England are the only one of the home nations in these four countries here to have a better chance. Ireland won't get near a semi-final this year or next year.
But I think myself,
No chance.
England could be worth an outside bet for the World Cup. I know you'll be laughing now.
Well, look.
If they get all their 25, 30 players back, fully fit, bang, they have a chance.
Absolutely, they have a better chance than Ireland. They'll always have a better chance than Ireland because Ireland have had a bad World Cup history, and plus Ireland's draw is very unfavourable to them.
As you were saying, Chris, before we come on, they'll have to play either France or New Zealand to get into the semi-final.
Yeah, I mean, you may actually think Ireland may want to play New Zealand than France because they're playing France at home. It would be probably a stronger.
Well, to be honest, I'd back England any day to beat Australia. That's the other side of the draw. And I'd back them as well on a good day to beat South Africa. You could have England in the World Cup final in rugby.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? That's the way the draw is falling. I know right now they look dire. They look down, but we're saying, Joe, there that England, of the home nations as we call them, are capable of winning the World Cup in rugby.
Well, they have some fine players out injured, and they probably have got the deepest squad of players when you look at all the home nations ones experience-wise.
Yes.
So they could, going to the World Cup is what does it take? 7 games to win it or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
And it doesn't take much for them to get on a roll like that and get on it and then catch New Zealand on a bad day.
Can you imagine France versus England in the World Cup in Paris?
That would be something, wouldn't it? Yeah.
That'd be great. That'd be flipping great. Anyway, we don't know that now. We don't know will they come in or not, But you're listening to I'm just taking down the time here. You're listening to the final whistle here on theirmedia.tv, and our email is info@theirmedia.tv. Now, of course, over the weekend, Derwynne, we had golf. We had Georgia, your own Georgia Hall.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Georgia Hall. She won the Saudi international. I'm not saying this now because she's British or anything. She's a great positive attitude herself, and she's very, very good anytime I heard her being interviewed. And of course, Georgia, we're talking Georgia Hall won the Saudi International Ladies Tournament, and she won the princely sum of $135,000. Just to contrast that, Shane Lowry tied 12th in the Valspar, and he won, wait for it, $159,000 for finishing 12th. The winner of the Valspar won $1,404,000. I'm not comparing the Valspar with the Saudi International Ladies Tournament, but I'm saying surely there's a huge disparity. It can't all be down to audience and channel and all of that. It can't all be down to that.
It is, though.
It is.
It
100%
is.
it is.
It's
100%.
nothing to do with anything other than coverage. The ladies have got, in reality, they've got 2 majors, 3 if you include Evian. But I mean, you're and the Solheim Cup. But you look at the figures that watch the Solheim Cup, they're low.
Are they?
If you watch what's the figures for the President's Cup, which is not the Ryder Cup, whatever way you want to look at it, is not the Ryder Cup.
No,
I've
it's
never
not.
seen one President's Cup.
You see,
I've never watched it once in my life.
You see, the problem for women's sport in general is this, right? If you go to any Irish international, English international in rugby or soccer, go to an All-Ireland hurling final in Croke Park, right, or football final, right, 80,000 people, 25 to 40% will be made up of women.
Yeah.
But when it comes to their own sport, how many of that 25 to 40% will be at a women's international? None. That's the fact, right?
Yeah.
You take I'll put it this way, right? Sky Sports big up netball, right? Okay, they big it up, right? Yet they put it on a free to air channel because they know nobody's going to pay to watch it.
Yeah.
Well, they're not
All
going
right.
to pay.
They're not going to pay to watch it. And the soccer, they're bigging up their women's soccer league. Yet there's 2 men and a dog there, and I say the tickets are dirt cheap. Women won't see. The problem is, men will always go to men's sport, and the women will always go to men's sport. But women will not go to women's sport. If you look at any women's match, the vast majority of that attendance are men. That's the problem.
True.
That's the problem that they have.
It is. I mean, it's a huge problem. We had the manager of the women's Chelsea women's team complaining about the prize money for the women's FA Cup, right? As opposed to, I think it was 30,000 as opposed to 3 million for whatever. And I read an article by Martin Samuel afterwards, and he was talking about it, and he was going, okay. He said, I understand what you're saying and your points and the whole thing. He said, but let me put it in perspective here. He said, Chelsea women played a game the week before. There were 600 and odd people at the game. In the 5th division of men's soccer in England, which is non-league,
yeah,
they had 8 to 10 home games that had more than women's championship soccer at it.
Yeah,
Right.
And that's the problem with it. You know, if it can't be supported itself, then it's going to struggle. I mean, I played in a professional league over here in the States that folded because we couldn't get enough people coming in the door.
Yeah.
Yes.
And our league had to pay ESPN to put them on TV.
Yeah.
Right.
There's
now,
only
if it was in this stage, they'd be making a fortune.
Yeah.
But the league would be fine.
There's only one sport that I could think of. And even then there's a problem with it, right? There's only one sport that could hold its own towards men's sport, and that is tennis. But even tennis, they have been told that the men's sport is subsidizing the women's sport. Now,
Yeah.
and this is the thing, right? I mean, I know when you get an All-Ireland ladies football final in Croke Park, they get nearly 50,000. But you have to remember, Pat, that the ticket for that match is only 25% of what an All-Ireland hurling or Gaelic football championship
Yeah,
is.
that's true.
I mean, let's be fair about it.
That's
Ireland against England at Twickenham a couple of weeks ago was probably £100 or £120 a ticket. If you charge the women's international £120, you won't get anybody at it. And that is a fact. And you have to remember this. Last year, what they did was that instead of putting on, what they should have done was make it a curtain raiser in Twickenham. Like the women's girls played at, say, 1 o'clock and the men played at 3:30, 4 o'clock. What they did was they played it like at 8 o'clock at night when everyone's gone home, which is the biggest. I mean, it's the biggest kick in the bananas for any women sport. When you see that 2 hours earlier there was 80,000 people. Now we're playing, no one's here.
I don't know, Derwynne, you see, but I think BBC and fairness, and they get a lot of slagging and a lot of, like most national media, or well, let's say free to air media. But BBC does an excellent women's soccer show on a Sunday night.
What time? Yeah, but what time do they put it on at, Pat? I mean, but here's the thing: England are playing Scotland the next week.
That's my next point. It's on at midnight.
Yeah, no one. I mean, here's the thing. This is my point, right? All the Six Nations matches for the men, right, were on at prime time. They were either on at 2:15, 4:45, or 8 o'clock on a Friday, Sunday, Saturday night, or whatever. England are playing Scotland in the first match of the Women's Six Nations next week. What time is the match being shown on BBC?
I don't even know what day.
12 o'clock noon. 12 o'clock noon next Saturday.
And
Right? They're not even showing the Women's International at prime time because they know they wouldn't get anybody watching it.
Well, that's a shame because, as we said, the Women's Rugby Six Nations is on next weekend. Of course, really, I don't know about the scheduling when soccer internationals. I know there are only so many weekends in the year, but really, I don't know. Should they experiment with some other idea? I don't know. But women, we're asking the women out there to support yourselves first and foremost. We're not being sexist about this.
No.
We want women to support women's games for a beginning, and then the lads will always support a good match, whether it's male or female, like contend anyway, anytime, and that's proven in boxing in a small way. If the boxer is exciting, like Kelly Harrington, people will go to see Kelly Harrington. People will go to see Katie Taylor, if they're up there, and they're top of their game in their particular sport. But getting back to the golf, Derwynne, I dare say, is Lowry playing? I know it's a partisan question for you because I'm Irish, we're Irish, but you're Irish, you're half Irish yourself. But is Lowry playing enough to make an impression in the Masters?
I think Larry's an unbelievable player. And I think he's probably, he could win at Augusta. He could win round there.
Yeah.
I think his game suits more when it's windy. When it's bad conditions, he looks better. He looks better than everybody else when it's rough.
That's right.
And some of that is, again, where you grow up playing your golf, isn't it?
Yeah, 69 and 368. It's very steady golf he played over the weekend.
I'd like to see him win a Masters. I think it would be great.
Well, he'd probably retire if he wins the Masters because he'd be celebrating for a year after.
But I think it's hard for at the moment to beat some of these American lads. I mean, Justin Thomas is on fire.
He's found form again. Yeah, he'd be a good bet for the Masters, would he?
I think so.
Oh yeah, Thomas, I'd be putting money on him.
Yeah.
Each way, definitely each way. Yeah, I think
Dustin Johnson will be an interesting one because he's starting to get the putter working.
Yeah. Morakara will be handy.
And now, you know what? He's gone off the boil in the last few weeks.
I think he will. I don't know. I think he's.
My friend who made a few. I'm not a gambler. Before I say this, but I like to have my usual €3 each way on someone. Louis Susan has nearly always come up trumps in the Masters. I mean, not recently now, but he's he's been up there. You know, if you look at his record in the Masters, you know.
Yeah, he
Once-
played well at the Players as well.
He does. He plays steady. He's steady, very steady golfer. Anyway, the final whistle. Oh, by the way, the Formula One began over the weekend, and are Ferrari back? 1-2 for Ferrari. Did anyone we see? We don't. I don't think we have any Formula One supporters on the panel.
I heard all about it. I mean, from what I mean, at the moment, Mercedes think they're a basket case already.
Oh, they're not.
What's it? Red Bull. They kind of, you know, they've obviously got engine trouble. That's what happened. But it's a long season. I mean, it's only March, and you know, I guarantee you, whoever won yesterday, Leclerc, he won't even be mentioned when it comes to October, November.
Well, I want to see it, lads. Know the race, but
No.
Hamilton came in a very good third, in my opinion. That's in my opinion. I like
He got lucky though, didn't he?
Yeah, he got lucky. I heard he got lucky.
Perez's car just stopped.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't crash it. It stopped on him. It ran out of power.
They both of the Red Bull cars. I mean, they had problems with the steering, and then the fuel pump went on both of them. So I mean, so you go from winning a world championship last year, and on the very first race out, you're at your team's throats. Well, fix this for us. You know, what's wrong with the steering? Well, there's nothing wrong with it. Well, what's wrong with the battery? There's nothing wrong with it. Well, there is something wrong with it. You got to fix it for me. And you know, apparently the whole thing was like a right mess. What Chris says, you know, Mercedes have their problems, and any of the cars that are using Mercedes engines right now are having problems as well. So that was kind of a bonus for them to get in and get a third and fourth place.
Isn't there a romanticism about the Ferrari? The whole,
Yeah.
Isn't there some romance with that red car and that prancing horse? Is it?
Yeah, but they kind of bend the rules, don't they?
Who doesn't nowadays?
No, Ferrari really do, though, don't they? Let's face it.
Yeah.
If you said romantic, surely you'd be saying Alfa Romeo.
Well, true as well. Yeah, true. But I'd love to see Hamilton doing another championship to go to number 8. You know.
No.
And I don't know, is his heart in it? I don't know, has he recovered from the last race, the last result from last year? I don't think he's recovered from that.
They're probably still arguing about it in court, aren't they?
Yeah. I don't think they're still recovered from to shocking, but we won't go over the whole ground anyway. But that was the Formula One for people who like that kind of thing. The GA, which is Derwynne's favourite sport. And
We've got to get him over to a match here. In fairness, we have to show him how to hit a ball out of our hands instead of on the ground. For God's sake!
Right, yeah. And
He'd have the wrong grip on it.
No, he'd be teeing up. Harry
Maguire can't hit it or kick it, so we'll give him a hurley. He might
keep calling it Irish cricket.
No,
well, Irish cricket. Didn't we beat you at cricket once? Didn't we? At least once.
He did, yeah, at least once.
Yeah, that was like someone says Ireland losing to England are hurling. I mean, that's just unfathomable.
And didn't Ireland qualify for the T20? Did they? The World Cup?
We'll beat them again. Don't worry. We'll give them time. We'll give them a chance. We'll
Irishmen.
We'll play with one hand behind our back. That's what we'll do.
Bowl underarm.
Now, did you ever see that? Was it New Zealand and Australia? Right, and they were just the Kiwis needed 1-1 to win it, and your man, was it Dennis Lilly? I can't remember who it was. He bowled the underarm, and then Kiwis were absolutely disgusted.
He just rolled it along the floor.
He did. He rolled it on the ground. He could have just put it on the ground and kicked it towards him if he wanted to do it.
I see.
Chappell. Chappell was the Australian.
Chappell was a Greg Chappell. Yeah.
He told his bowler to bowl it underarm, and Rodney Marsh was going absolutely bananas because he didn't think it was a sporting thing to do.
Sporting thing. sporting enough for nothing to do, I tell you that.
Yeah.
I would imagine Lily and the other one. What was the other one? The other fast bowler, Thompson.
Oh, Thompson.
I bet they had a bet on it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, Thompson.
We have no inside information there, lads. It's all speculation.
It's a great story about Dennis Lilly. That one of the Ashes matches, where they were getting England were getting absolutely smashed, and then on the last day, Botham's had that. I think it was the Botham one where he went nuts, and then was it Bob Willis got the 5 or 6 wickets and everything else. That Lilly had a bet on England to win.
Was that Headley in
odds were
81?
so
Was that
good.
Headley in 81?
I think it was, yeah. And
Oh.
the odds were so good that he actually said in the Australian changing rooms, I'm going to have a bet on England to win because the odds are fantastic.
That's unbelievable.
And literally everybody was like, they all put money in the kitty and the whole team had a big sort of syndicate bet.
Jesus
Jeepers.
Christ.
And it came out years later.
Yeah. It must have affected their play though when they're looking at 40 or 100 grand or whatever the result would be. I don't know. Also, whilst last week I forgot to mention, I don't know if there's any horse racing fans in the audience. I didn't put this on club, but Cheltenham is over for another year. Cheltenham races, and it was stunning. The crowds at the thing, I could not believe it. I backed the winner of the Gold Cup by mistake.
So did I. A plus Tard with Rachel Blackman.
I had 3 horses each way for an investment of €8 in case people are worried.
Last the big spenders, lad. Last the big spenders.
Yeah.
And a return of €46. Oh, there you are.
Do you know what? That has matched your communion money, which my bank manager told me you still have inside your bank anyway. So that means you're up to 92.
The post office book, the old
Post
one.
office book, yeah. Saving stamps, Pat. Saving stamps.
But the Irish did very well again in Cheltenham, obviously with Rachel Blackmore winning the Gold Cup. I mean, she was one of the early sports people we got to speak to here in this station almost 2 years ago now, Rachel Blackmore, and she was very, very accommodating, and very positive and a very nice person, Little did we know when we were speaking to her that she'd become this superstar. Probably couldn't get near her now at this stage, but she was just acting out.
Cheltenham's a great day out.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, fantastic. I'm
I've
not
never
really
been
into
there.
horse racing, but Cheltenham
Yeah.
is it's one of those things that you need to do.
It's a buzz, a big buzz.
Yeah,
I
it's
have.
amazing.
Yeah. What about the guy that put 60 grand? They didn't say what it was, the £60,000 sterling on the horse that fell at the last fence. That allowed Rachel Blackmore to go to get another win. Oh God, jeepers!
Honeysuckle, wasn't it?
Honeysuckle and Jack, but the horse, it's the jockey's fault. He pushed the horse for a long jump, and the horse couldn't grip with his 2 front feet. The ground was soft. Next thing,
2 front feet.
Blackmore was nearly a 9. He just over the last fence.
Such a technical description. He couldn't grip with his 2 front legs. 2 front feet.
Well, he could have said pause.
Yeah, I could have made that mistake.
Take that now, and that.
He could have said pause. No, you know what I mean. And we'll have to. If we did, we'll have to hoof him off here. That's what we'll do.
Is there a farrier in the corner?
Oh, you just glad to see us?
The second most important.
He got saddled with that one, didn't he?
I did. Yeah. Oh dear. 2 front feet.
I'll leave you up to the Bible.
That's what the horse sings for Christmas. All I want for Christmas is my 2 front feet. That's it.
Nay. But the
that was bad. That was
second most important EA event in the calendar is the National Leagues, hurling and football. And over the weekend, the National Hurling League came down to the last games, and Limerick got a win. But I mean, really, look at John Kiley's, the manager's interview from Limerick afterwards. I'll tell you, John is I wouldn't like to be Not like to be now, it's too negative, but John was no holds barred interview with Sporting Limerick, and really after even they demolished Offaly, but really Offaly are a poor second division team. They would be expected to do that. So Galway Galway, Limerick, Wexford, Kilkenny, Dublin, and Tip, and Limerick all won. And down to the last four, it's Cork versus Kilkenny in one semi-final next Saturday for people who might know that it's on the Park Keefe. I think it's 7 o'clock. And Waterford versus Wexford in the other semi-final. So really hotting up for a league. Football, Kerry won Kerry into the league final. As you know, I think Kerry are odds on to win the All-Ireland this year myself in football. And Dublin won, Kildare won. Cork footballers had a win. I'm loath to say it because they won nothing all the year in football. They had a draw. They got a win. They have to go to Offaly next Sunday. As I was saying to Chris before the show, just to wrap up, they have to go to Offaly next Tullamore, and they have to win really to stay in the Sam Maguire Cup, which is the All-Ireland series. Or they've changed rules. If you go down to Division 3 now, you're in serious trouble. It's only the first two divisions in the league, so that's how important it's after getting.
I think, Pat, the problem about the hurling league at the moment is that it has now got really, really serious for some counties now, because I'm trying to think. This day in less than 4 weeks' time, the All Ireland Championship starts with the provincial championships, and it's going to start at Easter weekend. And you know what? It all depends on the weather and what kind of pitches we get out there. But you're going to have a fast between now and the end of May. It's going to be fast and furious, and like especially in the hurling, you're going to have like maybe whittle down to 6 counties in the space of about less than 10 weeks' time. You know, and it's going to be, there's going to be. Although I've said this a long time now, the last few years now, that you could see the game refereed differently in April than it would be when it comes to the All-Ireland final in July. And that would be a pity, because that's what seems to have happened in the last few years. As I said, I think some of the score lines. But I kind of watched a bit of the Kilkenny and Waterford match on Sunday, but I do think some of the score lines that came out were very alarming for the standard of hurling at the moment, with the gaps that there were. That Kilkenny, what Tipperary did to Antrim would do them no good. I think
the second-tier teams, Laois seems to be the ones making a bit of progress.
Yeah, but they still got hammered by Dublin, and Dublin won't be near enough there. Dublin. See, the problem about hurling is this: is like, you think of it like this in say soccer. You've got Limerick, Galway, Kilkenny, and probably Waterford, right? And then they would be your top 4, like in the Premiership. And then you have your couple of teams like Cork and Clare and whatever, okay? And then you have to maybe skip about 10 teams before you come to your relegation teams. So I wouldn't
put Galway at all in the top 4.
I will. Of course I will. Of course you do.
Galway will win nothing this year.
Well, we'll bet. I'll tell you what now. You can put your €3 on them if you want, but I think Galway have got a far better chance than a lot of counties out there, because they've got a top class coach, they've got good players, and he will make sure that the club rivalry that has been servicing around Galway for years, that won't cause any truck with Henry Shefflin. No way. He's there. Well, he doesn't care about that. And sometimes an outside coach is good in that way, because he carries no baggage. And he can then come in and says, look, lads, park whatever your bloody problems are outside the gate. I don't want to know. Simple as that. And that's what happens.
Just hopping back to the Six Nations, there was a fantastic picture over the weekend of the embrace between the Welsh player who got man of the match. Forget his name. Was he number?
Josh Adams.
Yeah. When he went over to the Italian.
Yeah, gave him the player of the match thing.
Man of the match medal. I thought it was a magnanimous gesture by him, because the disappointment of Wales losing in Wales must have been shattering for the players themselves,
Well, they were nearly 18,000 down on attendance. So the last game was 12. That game against Italy, they're 18,000 down on attendance.
Would anybody be able to pick their standout game from the Six Nations?
The standout game. I thought Wales and France was a cracking game.
Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah,
Wales and France.
yeah. Wales and France probably shaded all right, because haven't all the other games been very poor standard wise? 115 and 120 quid to watch that.
Well, Ireland and France was decent, in fairness now.
Alright.
But you know, I thought Wales and
Well,
France was the best game of the tournament.
The Irish scrum is in serious rag order. But Paul O'Connell is the scrum coach. We're not saying anything against them. I'm just wondering,
You see, the last time you asked for a coach to get... See, the problem, Pat, is this. The last time you asked for a coach to be sacked was Andy Farrell, and look what he's done to the team so far. So I'd be very loath to listen to you about sacking him coach.
Well, he beat nothing yet. He won the Triple Crown against rubbish teams, but I'm just saying the acid test for Farrell will be the World Cup. But
Well, it's the acid test for every manager. In all honesty, it's the acid test. I mean, if you think Andy Farrell is under pressure to World Cup, wait to see Eddie Jones. You wait to see what Fabian Galtier, home coach. New Zealand. If New Zealand don't win, they'll sack their coach. Simple as that. You know. So they and it's the same in soccer. Same in soccer.
Eddie Jones has come out.
huh?
Eddie Jones has come out yesterday and said that one of the hiccups he's having being the England manager is that he's Australian.
He can't change that, sure.
But yeah, apparently him being Australian is a bad thing to be a manager of England because we don't like Australians.
But sure, it wasn't too bad when they got to the final a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think he just makes it up as he goes.
Of course he does.
Well, he has 18 months, and as we mentioned in the start of the program, he has a good pool to. I wouldn't have any sympathy now for Eddie Jones because he's getting well paid. There's no doubt about that. They have plenty of money and they have plenty of players, so they should have no excuses when the World Cup comes on. Whereas in our case, we have very small pool of players, and half the team are non-Irish anyway. So
You see, Eddie Jones is a hired gun. That's all he is.
Yeah,
he was brought in for one reason and one reason only, and that was to win a World Cup.
Yeah,
and he has, in to all intents and purposes, he's failed miserably. I mean, he's had one good go at it, and the rest of it, he's won what? He's won one Grand Slam in the time that he's been there, the first year, I think.
yeah.
And he hasn't won it. He hasn't won it since. And then he goes, well, I'm not really interested in this. And then he goes, well, it's much tougher for me because I'm Australian and the English don't really like me and what have you. That's just a crock.
That's of course.
You know? I mean, was the same thing said about Graham Henry and Gatland for Wales? No. I mean, those two lads were brought in to win, and they did win. They had good times while they were there.
You see, let's don't forget the point here in this, right? That there's a massive difference here about what the achievements on English rugby union to what the Irish rugby union's achievements are. The Irish rugby union's achievements to their coach would be to be second or third in at least 3 championships out of 4, right? So what happens is that Ireland always had this. If you look at the previous Grand Slams, over the last couple of years, and when Ireland win a Six Nations, always seem to happen in the mid-cycle between World Cups, right? Now, Ireland won in 2009, and then they were disastrous in 2007 in the World Cup, disastrous in 2011. They won the Grand Slam again in 2018. When it came to the World Cup the year later, they were disastrous as well, right? That's the way Ireland's model is, that they need to get to a certain level in the Six Nations because that's where the prize money is. Because the English FA or the English Rugby Union have more money at their disposal, they can basically be a bit more blasé when it comes to the Six Nations because they know that the World Cup is their main goal. So the reason why Ireland don't do well at World Cups is because it's not in there. I mean, Ireland had an indifference to the World Cup 30 odd years ago anyway, But what happens is that any coach who takes that job on is told of the minimum requirements it is in the Six Nations, while the English coach is basically told one thing: win that bloody World Cup. That's it. Big difference, guys.
And I think the fact that it's on in France, Joe, before I come in, the fact that it's on in France gives us a reasonable. I mean Ireland. I mean, we haven't far to go. There's no about time zones or anything. Whereas Australia, South Africa, New Zealand will be on the go up to us.
Yeah, but here's the thing, and this is the thing, Pat. This is the thing which is key about France. France a few years ago, right? It's their domestic league would be the main thing, right? And they only gave their players if they were playing, say, on the 1st of February in say the first match of the Six Nations, they were still in the last weekend of January playing their top 14, right? That's the way they operate in France. Okay. Now, because of Galtier's come in and says, right, we have a home World Cup, lads, we're going to win this, then all bets are off. So they're changing the model of the French domestic league to suit the national team, because they now are coming along and thinking, we want that World Cup too. So, but these are all big associations with big pots of gold that can finance this. Ireland don't have that money. And
Derwynne, is it European Cup or World Cup qualifiers around the weekend? I forgot to look. Coming up the weekend.
Friendlies. England and Ireland playing friendly matches.
Yeah, friendlies, yeah. Wales have got a match on Friday.
Wales are playing Austria in the World Cup playoff.
Yeah, in Cardiff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just friendlies, isn't it?
Yeah. And the Republic of Ireland are playing Belgium.
Yeah.
In a friendly international, is it?
Yeah. Yeah, Saturday afternoon.
Yeah. So there we go. So now, lads, we have, I suppose, more of a relaxing weekend next weekend to look after. Of course, I'll probably be down in Cork on Saturday for my sins, just to have a look at them in red and white. I'll have to look at them up close and personal and make up my own mind about these things.
Will you get in on a senior citizens ticket, Pat?
I have a pass. I'll have a pass going in.
I tell you, before you go, there was a story. You love this one, Derwynne, right? That years ago, it's maybe about 15 years ago, right? They used to be, maybe they do it in England in certain clubs, whatever, but they'll have a senior citizens card, like, pensioners rate. So if you go into the pension style, if a match ticket was, say, €20, you get in for a tenner, right? The Kilkenny County Board, right? They had to actually introduce a card with a photograph on it because there was too many 30-year-olds going into the pensioner style.
And as well as that, Joe, they were jumpy up and down, whereas they normally shouldn't be jumpy up and down.
Actually, did you ever see the video going around of some guy in a wheelchair when his team scores? He runs the whole length of the field in celebration.
America. Well, you had that in Thurles. I know two people because I know where they're from. I know them personally. And in the old days, in the 60s and 70s, all umpires and officials had white coats. White coats, remember the old people in white coats standing in line? These two guys went down to the match, went into the toilet, put on their white coats and all, and walked off out down into the sideline. They had nothing to do with the match. They got in. I know it's very funny. It's really very funny, But these are innocent times, but you wouldn't do it now anyway, really. We wish everybody well. And from this edition of the Final Whistle, from Chris, from Derwynne, and from Joe over there in Seattle, thanks, lads, for another blast. And take care until we see you again next Monday. And
night, lads.
Night, lads. Take care.
Bye, guys. Be good.
Bye.